When the lawyer stood up and said every single thing Grandpa left was mine, his house, his accounts, everything, the room went silent. My mother dropped her napkin. My sister just stared. They'd just spent the evening toasting family unity while pretending I didn't exist. "Hi, I'm Jenna." For years, my family acted like Eli and I were invisible, but what they didn't know was Grandpa saw everything, and what he left behind, it changed everything. Before we jump into the story, if you don't mind, let me know where you're from by leaving a comment below. That way, I can send a special hello your way. Now go ahead, grab yourself a warm cup of water and find a comfy spot. It's time to begin the story. I hadn't heard from my family in almost a year. No calls, no texts, not even a shared photo in the family thread. And then, out of nowhere, Elaine's name lit up my inbox. "Family BBQ this Sunday. Everyone's coming." No greeting, no emojis, just a line that read more like a press release than an invitation. I read it twice, then a third time, trying to figure out if it was sent by mistake. It was Eli who pulled me out of my daze. He looked up from his sketch pad and asked if I was okay. I must have been holding my breath. I smiled automatically and tucked my phone away, but the message was still echoing in my head like a song I didn't choose to hear. That night, after Eli went to bed, I found myself thinking about something Grandpa Calvin once told me. I was maybe 14, sulking after another argument with Mom. He had leaned in and said quietly, "Family is who shows up, even when it's uncomfortable." At the time, I thought he was just trying to comfort me, but maybe it had been a warning. I didn't decide to go right away. The idea of walking back into that house, the same house where I used to help frost birthday cakes and hang ornaments, now felt like stepping onto a stage in a play I'd been written out of. But Eli changed everything. When I finally told him about the invitation, his face lit up like it was Christmas morning. "We're going to Grandma's?" he asked, eyes wide, full of the kind of hope you don't dare dim. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to explain that this wasn't the kind of family you run back to, but I looked at him, really looked, and I just couldn't do it. "Yeah, sweetheart," I said. "Sunday dinner." Sunday arrived heavy with humidity. The air in Charleston that time of year is thick, like it doesn't want to let you breathe too easily. As we pulled into the driveway, everything looked perfect. The lawn trimmed to military precision. Hydrangeas puffed up along the walkway, the kind of house that made strangers think, "What a lovely family must live here." Elaine opened the door with a wide smile that didn't touch her eyes. She kissed the air near my cheek and called Eli so big now before ushering him in. He bolted toward the backyard, his sneakers squeaking on the tile. I followed more slowly, my senses tuned to every detail. The long tables were already set. White folding chairs, gingham napkins, sweet tea sweating in mason jars. There were enough seats for everyone. Everyone except me and Eli. I stood there for a beat, hoping someone would notice. No one did, so I slipped back into the pantry and pulled out 2 spare chairs. Folding metal, mismatched, wobbly. I carried them out like a stagehand who'd shown up late to a scene she wasn't cast in. No one batted an eye. Eli didn't seem to notice. He was too busy chasing his cousins near the porch. But when the food was served, I saw him hesitate. The kids had paper plates in neat stacks. Ours came from the kitchen, after I asked. Twice. Corinne was slicing watermelon at the counter when Eli approached, holding something behind his back. "I made this for you in art class," he said, shy but proud. He revealed a small clay heart, uneven but earnest. "It's for your garden." Corinne took it, looked at it for barely a second, and said, "How thoughtful," before placing it beside the trash can like it was something temporary, something wet with paint that hadn't dried yet. I watched it sit there all afternoon, untouched. No one asked me how I'd been. No one mentioned Eli's school or his drawings or the new braces we'd finally managed to afford. The conversation buzzed around us like we weren't part of it. Vacation plans, work promotions, someone's new boat. I nodded, smiled, ate what I could. After dinner, I slipped inside to use the restroom. That's when I saw it, the photo wall. It had been redone, new frames, warm lighting, a meticulous grid. I stood still, scanning for even a glimpse of us. Nothing. Elaine's wedding, Liam's graduation, a photo of Corinne and Russell in matching holiday sweaters, a close-up of the family dog in a Santa hat. But not me, not Eli, not even a blurred background face. Behind me, I heard small footsteps. Eli. He looked up at the wall, searching like I had. Then he whispered, "Maybe they forgot to print our pictures?" I couldn't speak right away. I reached for his hand instead. Later, as we drove home in silence, I watched him in the rearview mirror, humming to himself, still wearing the hopeful smile that hadn't yet learned how to protect itself. My fingers tightened on the wheel. "Maybe they didn't forget," I said quietly. "Maybe they just didn't want to remember." "Mom, what if we made them cupcakes? Maybe they just forgot to invite us." Eli asked it with the kind of softness that made my heart feel both full and fractured at once. He was leaning on the kitchen counter, barefoot, crayons scattered around him like fallen twigs. His green one had snapped in two. He didn't seem to notice. I looked up from the sink where I'd been rinsing the last dinner plate, trying to pretend I hadn't seen the post. Elaine had tagged everyone but me. The photo was glossy, overexposed like they wanted it to shine brighter than it felt. There stood Kendra, Elaine's daughter, grinning in front of a glittery 10 balloon, cheeks dusted with pink frosting, arms wrapped around cousins whose names I hadn't heard in months. Everyone was there. Every child, every aunt and uncle, except Eli. I didn't cry, not anymore. I just stared at the screen, then turned it over on the table like it was something dangerous. "That's a kind idea," I said finally. "What colors should we use?" Eli smiled. "Green and blue. Kendra loves those." We spent Saturday baking. He insisted on doing the eggs, cracked 2 perfectly, and got a third all over the counter. I let him stir the batter even when he went too fast and sloshed some onto the floor. Our little kitchen filled with the smell of vanilla and the gentle beat of his humming. He decorated each cupcake carefully. Green swirls, blue dots, shaky little hearts. We boxed them up in a recycled shoebox he decorated with marker stars and the words, "Happy Birthday, Kendra," written in his best second-grade handwriting. He held it on his lap like it was made of glass. The drive to Corinne's house felt shorter than usual, though I didn't take a different route. Maybe I was just distracted. Maybe I was bracing myself. When we pulled into the driveway, Eli leapt out with the box in both hands. He walked right up to the door and knocked with 3 polite taps. Corinne opened it a moment later, still in a silk robe. Her mascara was smudged, her hair pulled into a quick knot. I wondered if she'd even left the house that day. She looked at me, then down at Eli. "Oh," she said. "I wasn't expecting anyone." Eli smiled, oblivious. "We made cupcakes for Kendra. I wanted to say happy birthday." Corinne nodded slowly, stepping forward but not aside. "Well, now's not really a good time, sweetheart. Maybe next weekend?" Eli blinked, unsure. I just wanted to give them to her." Her hand reached out, touched the side of the box. Then she gently took it and placed it beside the porch planter, next to a small pile of rolled-up newspapers. "I'll tell her you stopped by," she said. "Okay?" She leaned down and patted his shoulder. Then she closed the door. Eli stood there for a moment, staring at the closed entrance like he was waiting for it to open again. It didn't. We turned back toward the car. That's when I saw it, half hidden under the planter near the shoes by the door. A Christmas card. One I hadn't received. A family photo. The Walker family. Grateful. Blessed. Together. The image was staged in front of their fireplace. Red sweaters, hot cocoa mugs, smiles that stretched wide but stopped at the edge of the frame. We weren't in it. Back home, I helped Eli out of his shoes and into his pajamas. He didn't say much. Just asked if we could make more cupcakes another day. I said sure. After he went to bed, I sat in the living room with my laptop open. The screen glowed softly in the dim light. I opened a new folder on my desktop. Evidence, emotional neglect. Into it, I dragged the photo of the birthday party from Elaine's page, a screenshot of the cupcake box before we left, an old voicemail from Kendra that ended with, "We're just keeping things tight this year," a text from Corinne in March that read, "We didn't think Eli would want to come anyway." Click, save, click, save. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was documenting, preparing, quietly putting the puzzle together. The next morning, Eli climbed into my lap with his sketch pad. He held up a picture of a house with stick figures out front. 2 small ones were off to the side. "This is us," he said, "and that's them." I traced the lines with my finger. "Why are we over here?" He shrugged. "We're always watching from far away." Later that afternoon, he asked something that stopped me cold. "Would they put my picture up if I wasn't your kid?" He asked it without pain, just curiosity, like he was wondering how gravity worked or what clouds were made of. I didn't answer right away. I just pulled him close. "They'd be lucky to have your picture, baby," I said. "It's not you they don't see, it's me." That night, after the dishes were done and the apartment was quiet, I opened my laptop again. I stared at the screen, the blinking cursor waiting in a blank email draft. Subject line: Will of Calvin Walker. Legal inquiry. I didn't hit send, not yet, but I didn't close the window either. Some truths don't shout. They wait, patient, undeniable, and I was almost ready. The house was still, too still, and the trash bins were full. I pulled the car up along the curb the same way I had 100 times before. The same uneven bricks lined the driveway. The same wind chimes still clinked softly above the porch. Only now they sounded more like a reminder than a welcome. Something about the whole place felt paused. Not lived in, not loved, just left behind. Eli sat in the back seat, clutching his sketch pad. His feet swung above the floor mats, not quite touching. "Is this Grandma's house?" he asked. I nodded. It used to be. The front lawn was browning at the edges, flower beds wilting like no one had watered them in weeks. Even the doormat was gone. I tried the key. It clicked. The moment the door creaked open, I knew. The air didn't just smell stale. It was hollow, lifeless, the kind of quiet that pressed against your chest like someone forgot to exhale. Inside, the house was stripped bare. No rugs, no couch, just faint indentations in the carpet where the furniture used to sit. Picture hooks on the wall, empty and still level. Even the faint outlines of where frames had blocked sunlight. It was like someone had erased us in pencil but didn't bother to brush away the shavings. Eli stayed close to my side. He looked around with wide, quiet eyes. "Where did everything go?" he asked. "Somewhere else," I said. In the kitchen, the cabinets were open. A few crumbs left behind in the drawers, one lonely mug in the dishwasher. The calendar still hung on the wall, August, but nothing was circled, nothing planned. Just a blank grid and a pen mark that trailed off across Wednesday like someone got distracted halfway through remembering. Then Eli tugged my sleeve. "Mom," he said, pointing toward the curb, "the trash bins are still out." 3 of them, 1 green, 2 black. Lids tilted, sunlight glaring off the plastic. I felt something tighten in my throat. He walked over before I could stop him, lifting the lid on the first bin. He didn't recoil. He didn't gasp. He just stood very still, staring down like he'd found a puzzle he didn't want to solve. "Mom," he whispered, "come here." Inside, scattered among torn packing paper and dented cardboard, were the things they hadn't wanted to take. A photo of Eli on his first birthday, creased in half. His name, written in blue ink along the border, had been scratched out with a marker. I reached in and lifted it gently. The rip ran right through his smile. Beneath it was one of his handmade cards, the kind kids make when the glue sticks to their fingertips and the colors bleed at the edges. A stick figure family, scribbled hearts, the words, "Family Forever," underlined 3 times. It was crumpled, barely legible. And then I saw it. The clay heart. The one he'd made for Corinne. The one she'd placed beside the trash can after the barbecue. Now it lay broken, snapped clean down the middle. The crack ran through the middle like a silent confession. I didn't say anything. I just closed the lid and placed my hand on top of it, the way people do at a gravesite when words don't come. We turned back toward the car. That's when I heard a familiar voice. "Marlene?" Edgar, the neighbor, stood by his mailbox, sweater sleeves pushed up like he was about to rake something he didn't want to talk about. He walked over slowly. "Hey, I thought maybe you already knew." "Knew what?" I asked, though I already had. "They moved last week," he said. "Vera told me they were downsizing, said they'd told everyone." He looked away, sheepish. "Said you'd get the Christmas card." I nodded once. That was all I could manage. "They didn't leave a note," I said. "No forwarding address either," he replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just said they'd reach out once things settled." Back in the car, Eli was quiet. He stared out the window, the sketch pad unopened on his lap. "Are we still their family?" he asked. I looked at him. I didn't soften it. I didn't lie. "No," I said, "because family doesn't throw you away." At home, he went straight to his room. I heard the familiar sounds of his pencil scratching the page, drawing another world, one where people stayed. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. A new folder joined the first one, Inheritance Correspondence. This time, I wasn't saving memories. I was preparing my case. I pulled up the email draft I'd started but never sent. Subject: Executor Confirmation. Urgent. I hovered over the keyboard. Then I hit send. Sometimes the truth doesn't come in a shout. Sometimes it's a file, a folder, a photo in the trash. Sometimes it's the sound of nothing, and nothing was exactly what they left behind. The envelope was sealed with my name and Grandpa's unmistakable handwriting. It had been almost 2 weeks since we found the broken heart in the trash, and Eli asked if we still belonged. Since then, I'd let my actions speak louder than their silence. The folder on my desktop, titled Inheritance Correspondence, was growing, and now it was time to open a door they thought I'd never knock on. Joseph Linwood's office was tucked inside a historic building off Broad Street. Tall ceilings, deep green walls, and dark leather chairs that gave the room a hushed authority. Books lined the shelves behind his desk, real ones with spines worn from decades of being referenced, not decoration. Outside, the magnolia trees swayed gently in the September breeze, the kind of day that tried to pretend summer hadn't ended yet. Inside, it felt more like the beginning of winter. Joseph greeted me with a firm but warm handshake. "Jenna," he said, "come on in, and this must be Danica." My attorney nodded, her expression unreadable, sharp as always in her gray blazer and flat shoes. She didn't come to make small talk. Neither did I. Joseph motioned to a pair of chairs. "I appreciate you both coming in person," he said. "I know this is a delicate matter." Delicate. That word again. Like the truth might break if you handled it too directly. He reached into the drawer and pulled out the envelope. It was cream-colored, sealed with a heavy thumbprint of wax. My name, Jenna Lee Walker, was written in the same deliberate script Calvin used when signing birthday cards or writing grocery lists in block letters, like he still didn't trust his cursive. "I found this in the safe deposit box," Joseph said, sliding it toward me. It was accompanied by a notarized codicil, handwritten, dated 7 months before he passed. I picked it up carefully. My fingers trembled, but not from nerves, from recognition. I hadn't seen that handwriting since the last letter he sent Eli, the one with the $20 bill tucked inside and a note that said, "Buy something that makes you laugh." I opened the envelope. Inside, a single page, no preamble, no small talk, just Calvin's voice, steady even in ink. "Jenna, if you're reading this, then they've already tried to pretend you were never here. Don't let them. You were always the one who stayed kind, even when they didn't make space for you. The house, the accounts, the land in Asheville, it's all yours. Do with it what I never could. Start fresh, and don't waste time proving anything to them. You already were enough. Grandpa. I folded the letter carefully, not because it was fragile, but because I was. Joseph continued. He left everything to you, sole beneficiary, no secondary clauses. It's unorthodox, but legally airtight, especially with the notarized backup. Danica leaned in, her voice low but steady. They'll be upset, but upset doesn't beat documented intent. They'll challenge it, I said. Elaine will make a speech. Corinne will say I manipulated him. Joseph nodded. Possibly, but that brings us to this. He slid over another sheet. It was an invitation, printed, glossy. Legacy dinner, honoring the life and contributions of Calvin Walker, hosted by the Walker family. It's next weekend, Joseph said. They've arranged it at a private venue, Charleston Riverfront Bistro. Danica crossed her legs. Let them gather first. Let them speak, assume, claim. Then we speak. Last. I hesitated. You really think it's better to wait? Danica looked at me, her eyes narrowing just slightly. It's not about better. It's about impact. You don't fight noise with more noise. You wait until the room is quiet. Then you say what needs to be said. I folded my arms. This isn't revenge. I'm not trying to embarrass them. No, Danica agreed, but you are entitled to the truth and the space to say it. Joseph leaned forward slightly, fingers laced. You don't have to make a speech, just a few words, but they'll be remembered. I sat back in the chair, exhaling slowly. For years, I'd avoided moments like this, any moment that felt confrontational, final, defining. I'd always been the one to smooth things over, to apologize first, to keep the family boat from rocking. But the boat had already sunk, and I was done pretending to swim in someone else's tide. I nodded. All right, I'll be there. We spent the next half hour reviewing documents. Danica uploaded the digital timeline, years of exclusion, voicemails, texts, posts that framed a narrative of removal. Joseph printed copies of the codicil, confirmed the asset list, noted who would be notified when. Everything precise, everything clean. By the time we stood to leave, the late afternoon sun was pouring through the windows in long golden stripes. I thanked Joseph. Danica shook his hand but offered no pleasantries. We didn't need them. Outside, the wind had picked up. The Spanish moss in the trees drifted like soft ghosts above the sidewalk. I paused beneath them, letting the air move around me. This time, I wasn't grieving. This time, I was gathering. I looked out across the street, then up into the movement of branches and light. It felt like the air was clearing. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to keep my voice down. This time, I whispered, I'm not the quiet one. They raised glasses in Grandpa's name, having no idea what he actually left behind. The private room at the Charleston Riverfront Bistro was dressed to impress. Round tables draped in linen, ivory floral centerpieces that matched the monogrammed menus, and a soft jazz trio playing just loud enough to make conversation feel exclusive. Through the tall windows, fall leaves drifted past in slow, graceful spirals. It was all beautifully curated. It always was. Eli and I arrived just before the appetizers. We'd been listed as late additions on the seating chart, tucked at the far end of the table. I didn't mind. Eli was just excited to be included, and I was more than fine with a seat where I could watch without being watched. Elaine greeted us with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. So glad you could make it, she said, as if we were old friends who had simply drifted, not family members who had been carefully excluded for years. Corinne gave Eli a brief pat on the head and turned away before I could say a word. Russell nodded at us, his attention already back on the shrimp cocktail in front of him. Danica stood near the back of the room, inconspicuous in a black dress, her arms folded as if she were just another catering manager. Joseph Linwood sat near the podium, flipping through a brown folder without expression. Elaine opened the evening with a speech. She stood tall in heels that clicked confidently against the hardwood. "We're gathered tonight not just to honor Calvin Walker," she began, "but to celebrate the values he instilled in this family: unity, loyalty, and vision." Unity. That word had become so hollow in their mouths it echoed. She went on about Calvin's community work, his annual 4th of July fish fry, the time he bought Kendra her first bike. She paused to dab a tear that wasn't there, then continued, "He was the glue. And now it's our job to carry his legacy forward together." I looked around the room, nods, murmurs of agreement. None of them noticed that Calvin's closest companion in his final years, his chess partner, his Sunday brunch co-chef, his biggest defender, was sitting silently beside her son at the end of the table, unmentioned. Then came the slideshow. Images flashed across the screen. Calvin holding Kendra as a baby, Calvin fishing with Liam, Calvin laughing at a family barbecue. Dozens of moments, all with smiling faces, all carefully chosen. None with me. None with Eli. Eli tugged my sleeve. "Did they forget Grandpa was your best friend?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. After the last toast, Joseph rose. The room settled quickly. His presence had weight, not dramatic, just undeniable. "I'd like to take a moment," he said, "to honor Mr. Walker's final wishes as executor of his estate." Chairs shuffled. Glasses clinked back to the table. Joseph opened the folder. Calvin Walker left behind a codicil to his original will, dated and notarized. It outlines his specific intentions regarding the distribution of his estate. He cleared his throat. Effective immediately, all assets, including real estate, financial holdings, and personal property, are transferred to Jenna Lee Walker. The room froze. Elaine blinked. "Excuse me." Corinne's fork clattered against her plate. Her hand reached for her wine, but missed. Russell stared down at his napkin like it had suddenly become the most interesting thing in the world. Joseph continued, "There are no secondary beneficiaries. The codicil overrides all prior versions. This was a deliberate, legally valid update." There was silence, and then Danica stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. "Any attempt to contest this will," she said, "will require addressing documented psychological patterns, specifically a sustained and recorded effort to exclude a minor from family support structures." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "We have texts, voicemails, and direct evidence, including material found in the family's discarded property, that demonstrate a pattern of emotional neglect." Elaine's face turned a shade paler. Corinne looked like she might actually get up and leave, but she didn't. She just stared at me, eyes narrowed, mouth tight. Joseph closed the folder. Danica added, "You're welcome to consult counsel, but be advised, we're prepared to proceed." For a moment, no one moved, and then Corinne spoke, low and sharp. "You'll regret this." I looked at her, steady and soft. "I regret staying silent this long." I rose from the table, Eli's hand in mine. No applause, no closing toast, just the clink of silverware as people remembered how to pretend everything was fine. As we walked past the framed photo display near the exit, I saw one last image, Calvin, holding Kendra at her graduation. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, was me, carrying Eli, cut off by the edge of the frame. That night, I didn't sleep much, not out of guilt, out of clarity. The truth had been spoken, the weight had shifted, and nothing they could say would unwrite what had already been written. "Do we still belong somewhere?" Eli asked me as we stood by the stove, waiting for the waffles to crisp. I didn't hesitate this time. "We belong wherever love stays," I said, pouring the batter slowly, watching it settle. It was January, the kind of January that didn't bite too hard. The mornings here had a quiet warmth, not just from the space heater near the porch door, but from the light that drifted through the kitchen window like it had nowhere else to be. Our lake house wasn't big. It was barely 2 bedrooms and a sagging porch swing, but it held us, and that was enough. Eli sat cross-legged on the rug, sketching something with his tongue tucked to one side. I could already see the outline of wings. The heron again. This one wasn't flying away like last time. Its beak was pointed toward the sun. Our mornings had found a rhythm. Waffles, cocoa, books spread across the couch. Sometimes we just listened to the wind. Sometimes we didn't say much at all. The mail arrived later than usual. I wasn't expecting anything. Most of the important papers had been handled by Danica. The rest, legal notices, transfers, even the awkward silence from Elaine, had slowed to a trickle. But there it was, a plain white envelope, no return address. I knew the handwriting instantly. Corinne's was always a little too sharp, like she was trying not to press too hard. I didn't open it right away. I stood there, thumb against the seal, breathing in. When I finally did, the message was short, handwritten, a little uneven. We didn't think you'd go this far. Maybe we misunderstood you. Maybe we were wrong. No signature, no date, no apology, just something halfway between an admission and a sigh. I read it twice, then folded it back up and tucked it beneath a framed photo of Calvin holding baby Eli, one of the few pictures that hadn't been tossed or forgotten. In the photo, Calvin was smiling like he'd never needed proof that love existed, like he knew Eli would carry something forward, even if the rest of them didn't. He once left a voice memo on my phone during a routine Sunday, his voice raspy with age and mischief. Don't inherit their guilt, Jenna. Inherit your freedom. That day, I finally understood what he meant. I spent the afternoon hanging a new photo wall. Nothing grand, just a series of simple wood frames we found at the thrift store. Eli helping me bake cookies, his arms covered in flour. The 2 of us camping last summer, marshmallows stuck in his curls. Sunday mornings in pajamas, board games halfway played, our life, quiet, honest, whole. Around 3, Edgar knocked with a brown bag of sugar cookies and his old chessboard under one arm. You ready to lose again? He asked Eli. You're letting me win, Eli grinned, setting up the pieces. Or, Edgar said, placing a bishop with a flourish, maybe you're just good at starting over. They played for nearly an hour. I sat nearby watching from the window as the lake shimmered beneath the early winter light. The geese had started to return, their V-shapes cutting clean lines across the sky. After Edgar left, Eli helped me clear the table. He was quieter than usual, thoughtful. Do you think they miss us now? He asked. I folded the dish towel and set it on the counter. Maybe, I said. But missing someone doesn't mean you treated them right. He nodded, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't look like he was carrying the weight of someone else's choices. Just his sketch pad and his soft understanding of the world. Later that evening, we walked the lake trail with hot cocoa in hand. I carried a thermos. Eli wore the scarf Grandpa gave him 2 birthdays ago, before the world began unraveling. At the clearing near the bend, we paused. Eli sat down on the wooden bench, opened his sketch pad again. The heron was nearly finished now, wings outstretched, rising, not retreating. I like this one better, he said. So do I. Peace, I've learned, doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives in small rituals, in the letting go of stories that were never yours to carry, in a child's quiet sketch of a bird flying toward the sun. And this time, that sun felt like ours. Sometimes, peace doesn't arrive with applause. It comes quietly in the morning light over waffles or the sound of a child sketching birds that finally fly towards something, not away. In the end, Eli didn't need their permission to feel loved, and I didn't need their acknowledgement to know we belonged. I've learned that family isn't made up of who shares your name, but who holds your heart. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. It means choosing not to carry what they tried to leave on your shoulders. As my grandfather once said, don't inherit their guilt. Inherit your freedom. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to build peace from pieces, I'd love to hear how you found your way back to yourself. Feel free to share your thoughts or simply know that you're not alone. Sometimes, the quietest strength is the one that stays.